Hey, Dave. Hey, Kyle. How are you guys doing? Oh, if I was patient enough, I would have heard you answer, and then I wouldn't have asked that question. I hope you're doing well tonight. Is the volume level good enough? Kyle, remind me again where you are located. I know, Dave, you're in the Carolinas, obviously from the name of your channel, as well as from having met you. Thank you, Dave BNSF, for letting me know about my volume levels. It's only my second live stream ever, so definitely bubbling along here. I think I knew that, Kyle. I think Alabama is a really good location to model, actually. It with the steel industry there and plenty of shipping. What part of the country do you model, Kyle? Dwight, how are you doing? Thanks for joining the stream early. I saw you had a lengthy video up about priming your big boy. I'm going to have to check that out. John at Schuylkill River Valley, welcome, sir. I've got an OBS question for you. I seem to have like a delayed playback in my headphones, and I wonder why I'm getting that. As much as I like to hear the sound of my own voice, hearing it twice is not, it's going to be a little confusing today. Hey, real artist, welcome. Thank you, John. I will look for that. Todd Armstrong, welcome aboard. Thanks for coming in. Still looking for that setting, John. Is that stream delay in advanced settings? It's not, stream delay is not enabled. I'm going ahead and enable it, and then I'm going to take it down to 0. Maybe that'll resolve my problem. Didn't help. Hey, Joe Rader, how are you doing? I'm not seeing the audio mixer, John. Sorry about that. It's not under settings anyway, or at least I don't see it there. Well, that's good, Ray. I just am getting a delayed playback in my. I'm glad you can hear me, but I'm getting a delayed playback in my headset, so it might confuse me. But as long as you can hear me and you can see my screen, I will deal with it. And we'll kick this off in just a couple of minutes. Hopefully, my screen isn't too. Hopefully, all you can see is that sub screen. Maybe I'll blow this up just to make sure there's no problem with that. There we go. Who did I miss and not say? Todd, I think I said hello to Todd Armstrong. How are you doing, sir? Thanks for coming to the stream. I think I've gotten everybody else so far. Yes, I know. I saw your message earlier, John, about where the audio mixer is. I've got OBS on a vertical display monitor instead of a horizontal display monitor, and so I think my appearance is a little different. I can't see the audio mixer at all. So as long as this is working for everybody else, then I'm happy. Boxcar Jerry, thanks for stopping in. I know you might not have a ton of time. Can I see a show of hands? How many people in the chat right now have made their own decals? Just so I know how knowledgeable my audience is. Yes, I see scenes and sources, John, but I don't see audio mixer. I bet you Joe Rader's made his own decals, or that would be my guess. Because that is part of what we're going to be discussing today, what we're going to have a little fun with here. Something that I love to do. I just love to make my own decals. There's something about the magic of laying down a decal and taking a blank surface and making it into what you want it to be, decorating it. I don't know, it just that really excites me. I'm afraid to click on exit, John. I don't want to exit my stream. Hey, Ed at Happy Valley, good to see you. All right, well, it's 8 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm usually not this punctual, but here we are. I'm pretty excited to do this with you all. And you see a rough agenda. I know it's Sidetrack Sunday, and so I should be planning on getting sidetracked and not giving you an agenda. but but here it is. Here's what I want to discuss. I want to talk a little bit about buffer cars, tell you a little bit about what they are, show you a bunch of pictures of buffer cars, and we're going to focus on the stencil markings that say it's a buffer car because it's relatively easy to replicate those stencil variations and create some buffer cars for you to use. And then after we've taken a look at that, I'm going to try and make some buffer car stencils for use making your own decals in order to make buffer cars for your layout. And then if we have time permitting, and there probably will be time, I have no idea how long this is going to take, um, we'll have some New Year's resolution talk. Hello, Steve 87th. Glad to see you here. Thank you for joining the stream. Yeah, true enough, and it is not a hidden agenda. So with that in mind, we'll go on to our first slide here, which is one example of a buffer car. I think. No, it's not. Here is a QR code that will take you to my website, and I will show this at the end of the presentation as well. This QR code will take you to the page on my website that starts the free decal art. I've already got some free decal art out there. I've got some Dunder Mifflin decals for the paper company of The Office TV show fame. I've also got some decals, I think, for frozen Floridian foodstuffs. Go ahead and try and say that 10 times fast. And that is a fictional uh, producer of foodstuffs for refrigerated containers. And these are previous artwork that I've created. The container set, for example, has everything that you would need, except I think for a couple of small badges and the stripes at the corners on the tops of the container. So it's really pretty complete. It's got all the data and everything that you can use. So that you need rather to in order to make those. So I'll show this at the end of the presentation as well, and I will distribute it in some other way down the road. So here is a buffer car. And what buffer cars are, this is kind of a relatively current railroading concept. These are cars that are buffered between the hazardous cargo, unit train hazardous cargo, and locomotive, and also at the end of the train, protecting it from locomotives that might hit the train from behind. So they are recycled cars essentially that have seen service doing other things on the railroad, and they are both. Hey Dave, DB Tech, good to see you. And these are not empty cars for the most part. These are cars that are full of some inert content in order to keep the protect the crew and the locomotive, but also to protect the cargo, the hazardous cargo from an ignition source like the locomotive. And so they fill that with sand, gravel, or in the case of tank cars, water. So, um, so they're not empty cars. This is a BNSF car. All of their buffers are in the 808, 808,000 series, 808 series. And these particular box cars have been modeled extensively by manufacturers. You can buy these buffer cars from a whole bunch of manufacturers. So I would spend a lot of time on this, although we may try to create that stencil there. You can see the stencil, buffer car service only. I'll zoom in on that. You can see that buffer service only, do not load. So um, these are ubiquitous. If you go on to riverpicturearchives.net, you will you will find a lot of these. Thank you, son. I appreciate that. I don't know how much closer to the mic I can get. I'll step a little closer to the mic. Is that closer? Is that sounding better, Hugh? I'm not sure. So at any rate, that's what buffer cars are, and this is one of the more common ones and more common stencils. Hello, Elmar. How are you doing? And this shot, I'm sorry, the resolution doesn't look so good, but you can see where the buffers are actually used to protect distributed power units in the middle of a train of, in this case, probably oil. But you can see there's more than one or two buffer cars that can be used in a train. There can be several. Sometimes there are two buffers on the end, two buffers at the beginning. So there are quite a few of these that can be in the train. So one of the cool things about buffer cars and getting them onto your train is you can have cars that are from uh, an old road, in this case the Southern, and you can also see that and they're heavily weathered. So if you like the weather, they're very old cars. You can do that, and you can see there in the center of the car where it says buffer, BUFFER. So it's broken up, and we'll definitely do a decal showing that kind of. Here's just another example of a hopper car that's being used as a buffer. That is an old line, the Sioux line. Oh, oh, I don't know how that happened. Let me go back. Oh, too far. Sorry about that. So here you'll see that flat cars aren't used as buffers. This one isn't labeled as a buffer, so it's not really that great interest to me. But I just wanted to see that yes, indeed, flat cars. And Bernard, the answer to your question is buffers are not all marked. Some of them are not marked, and you'll see there's a couple here. I think this next one. No, here's a tank car that's uses. This one is not. I think I have another shot of this particular car, and it's not marked as a buffer, but there's some interesting markings on it anyway that I think will replicate. Um, here's a gondola that's being used as a buffer car, full of something, who knows what. But again, you can see it's got a stencil, somewhat different stencil, car service only. So unfortunately, when you're making your own decals, you can't make white, so I don't think we'll be replicating that. And here, Bernard, for example, is a buffer car, an old Conagra Hopper, which is actually a pretty cool looking car, but it's not marked for buffer service, but it is acting as buffers. Yeah, I know, Ray. I've got this feedback in my headphone, and I'm worried about the audio. I don't know how to correct it. John, it's Julio Valley. Can I click on? I'm going to go ahead and click on this exit. If I lose you all, I'll come back. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Sorry about the audio, folks. I am trying to clear up my audio here. Second. Well, I doubt very seriously that that's going to have any effect. But whoa. Well, I don't know what I did there. I guess if I just go back to, yeah, I don't know how to stop this infinite regression thing that's going on here. Well, if you all can, is the audio too bad to continue with this, Ray? I hate to say that, but um, it's okay now, Dave. Well, all right, we'll just continue for a while here. So, um, but again, yeah, I'm still getting my echo, so it would surprise me if we still have an audio problem. But at any rate, here is a CN buffer car. This picture was taken in 2011, and I want you to take a look at the build date on there, March of 1907. So this gives you another reason to do buffer cars. If you want to include some really old equipment on your layout, you can use something from 100 years or more. As long as it's a steel frame car, I think you're okay. So pretty interesting. And again, as you can see, uh, it's got the buffer car uh, lettering here on this CN car. So so you can use some pretty old equipment as a buffer car, which is kind of fun. Now here is a more modern car. It's labeled as a buffer car, but it's very small. I am going to try to replicate this later in the show, but you can see there's a label there which actually says buffer car. I can't remember exactly. It says something about do not repair outlet gates. For issues, call, and it gives a phone number. So that's kind of interesting. That's kind of an interesting buffer car label, and it's one over each gate. So kind of interesting. We'll definitely try and make that later on. This is a another really interesting stencil of buffer on the southern boxcar. You can see how crudely It's been applied. So I replicate that when I start building my decal sheet. This is one of the ones we'll try and replicate, and that should be pretty easy to make with homemade decals. So now this is the only shot I've seen of buffer car markings on the back of a car, the front of a car, and stuff. Always been on the side. So I thought that was interesting. We can definitely replicate that center decal. The one that's specific to the car number, that would be, we can obviously do that, but that would be a different for everybody's model. So here's another example of a very old car that was used in buffer service at one time. I think this picture is of it at a museum, at a rail museum. You can see it's got here, I don't know exactly what this says, rail tray, Traix buffer. A little bit strange, but in any event, another example of some really cool looking cars using buffer service. And this yellow buffer here is something else that we're going to try to replicate tonight. Uh, for those of you who made your own decals, and for those who haven't, uh, it's very hard to do light colors. It's impossible to do white, and but this yellow, probably doable. We'll try and create that. It's easy enough to try and create that once we've done a few. And one of the things I've studied here in order to make this work for us tonight is I've looked at these lettering styles, and I've already gone out on the internet, looked through hundreds of stencil fonts, trying to find ones that are appropriate and look a little bit like what is being used by the railroads. So we will be using fonts that I've prepared during the. Again, this one is another Southern car. It's got red, buffer and red. That's very doable, and we'll create something like that later on. Hey, Russ is rocking O and HO trains. I'm glad to see you out here. Trackside Mike, what's going on? Just trying to keep up with the chat while I make this presentation here. Boy, there's a lot of Southern cars in my photo collection here, and this one is another one that says buffer broken up across 3 panels on the hopper. So we'll create something like that too, of course, on our decal sheet. And here's another WREX hopper with buffer car in the center of the car on a clean gray panel. So we can definitely create that on our decal sheet. Okay, and now my last couple of shots, I think I'm getting down here towards the end of my photos. The last couple of shots are of tank cars that are used as buffer cars. And this one is full of water. It doesn't say it's a buffer car, but it says not potable water. And you can see how crudely those stencils have been applied. They're not in line, they're not straight. I guess they didn't even have a spirit level to keep it straight. But so fun to recreate, and we definitely can do part of our decal sheet. We can do that. You know, Ed, I don't know exactly when buffers were started to be used. I guess the answer would be when unit trains of hazardous materials started being shipped. I don't know the answer to that. It's a very good question. Um, Trackside Mike, they are loaded, as I said, maybe before you join the stream. These are loaded. These tank cars are full of water, which I guess is an ideal thing to have when you're trying to prevent an explosion or fire. But the other cars are full of sand, gravel, rock, some inert material. John Garvin, good to see you here. And I agree with you. These are kind of end of use cars. There's no question about it. That's why they're so old, and they're often still marked for roads that are no longer in existence. And I think, but they are, I think to answer the question about when these cars were used, this is kind of modern railroading. I'm focused on modeling um, current day railroading, and they are, I see them all the time. I've got Norfolk Southern passing by my shop multiple times a day, quite often with petroleum uh, trains, oil cans, and they've got they've got buffer cars. A lot of them are the southern buffers cars that southern hoppers rather that we've seen in some pictures of. So they're definitely used today. I think they're more of a modern railroad thing though. But if somebody else knows differently, please let me know. Wow. Thank you, Hugh. That's an interesting stat for that old car. And now here is the last of my rolling stock photos from railroadpicturearchives.net. And this is a buffer car. I guess it's not the same ACFX car that we saw earlier, but it does have a nice water do not offload labeling there that I think is really cool. And so we'll go ahead and model that as well. So, trackside bike, I am not going to Amherst this year. I've really, I think I pushed my wife to her breaking point with hobby stuff this year. But I am going to go to, I'll probably go to the NMRA show. I usually go to that, and I skipped a couple of years. And I'm also definitely going to go to the IPMS Nationals, which are in Virginia Beach this year. I know a bunch of guys down there, and that's a remarkable show. So I'm definitely going to that. But I understand there's a bunch of folks going to Amherst. I think Amherst would be a good place for me to get some rolling stock to convert into buffer cars. But okay, so that is the end of the slide presentation of cars. I'm going to. I was hoping I could park that to the side, but it doesn't look like I can. So I'm now going to go into my graphics program here. And let me say right off for those who, Bernard, I don't know whether the cars are required, what circumstances the cars are required. Is there a certain number of hazardous cargo cars that have to use buffer? I don't know. I know they're used in yards, even when they're relocating and building a train. So I think it's as part of the safety regulations from the government, but I don't know. I don't know that rule. So I've now gone into my graphics program, and I'm not an expert on graphics software. I have tried to use Photoshop. It was very difficult to use and hard to go back to and remember all the rules. So I did not find it very intuitive. This is a program called Xara, Xara, and I really, I'm trying to read your questions there. Um, I'm hearing you, Bernard. I guess I love the questions that are coming up in chat about this. I think I'll be able. If I want to do a full presentation on buffer cars, I need to do some research. There have been some articles. There was an article, it's very short, 2 or 3 paragraphs in Model Railroader about buffer cars last month or the month before. I know there was a RMC article on buffer cars as well. I don't have that article. I haven't seen it. But there has been some work on this in the model press, and so get some of that. If you have more information, I'd be glad to hear about it from you. So, and before I start working on my decals, let me say that there are 2 HO decals available, one from CMR Products and one from Circus City. And the Circus City sheet is all white decals. It says it's for hoppers. The CMR is available in multiple colors. None of them have tank car decals. So, but those are available. Those are out there. And that's kind of a nice segue into what I want to say about homemade decals here is that you cannot print white unless you have a very expensive printer with white ink cartridges that will print white for you. And so most printers will not print white. So, for example, if you're going to try and make, let me see if I can move this over. If you're trying to make this square, this rectangular buffer service only do not load as a decal, you're going to have to paint a white square, rectangle rather, on your model. Your decal will be black, the white area will be clear, and then you just put that over the white painted area on your model in order to get the white letters to show through. So that is that's a limitation of making your own decals. But you can buy your own decal paper that looks like this. It's just blue paper uh, with the decal adhesive on it, and you can have it printed. You can print it yourself on a color printer. There's paper for decal paper for laser. There's decal paper for inkjet. I buy the laser paper myself, and I take it to Kinko's, FedEx, and use their high quality printers and print the decals there. And you have to be careful about scaling and make sure that it's not printing out at the wrong size. So I always have like a key with a 1-inch line on the bottom of my page. So when I pass print on plain bond paper, I measure that line and make sure it's exactly an inch. Then I know everything is to scale. Dave at Carolina Foothills. If there's white, I don't think that there's any magic to it being blue paper. So if you find white paper, white decal paper that's meant for creating decals, it should be fine. You can get this in the local hobby shop. You can order it from Micromark, which I think is what I have here. I have a pretty good stack of it from Micromark. So it's readily available, this decal paper. But I know I've seen it at Esther's Toy Hobby, the local hobby shop here in Pittsburgh at Millvale. And I bought some paper there, decal paper there as well. So not crazy expensive. But once you have the decal paper printed out, and you have to print it on the shiny side of that paper where the adhesive is, you then have to overcoat it with some clear. And I have historically used lacquer. I had a problem with that. However, the last time I did it, I'm making an autonomous geometry boxcar, autonomous track geometry boxcar, and the decals that I did for that, I overcoated with lacquer, and they fragmented pretty badly. So I'm going to have to go back and paint and correct that irritatingly. So if any of you who made your own decals have other advice, whether I should maybe using poly, something more plasticky, as my overcoat. Let me know what you're using, because I don't know. I've done my own decals for years using gloss lacquer. Never had a problem, but this time I did, so it's a little irritating. So the first thing I'm going to do. So we have a buffer in red here. This is I've got to see how big this is. So that's a quarter of an inch high. Actually, I think that might be about right um, for use on a car. So I'm just going to copy that, paste another one. You need at least two. I'm going to do three, just in case, like me, you're going to mess up. Doing a very good job lining that up. There we go. And I'll do a third one. That should be enough. Easy stuff on the page. Now we had some of these in yellow, so oops, I've got my text tool lit up here. I'm going to go ahead and change this to yellow color. I'm going to select the yellow color from all yellows instead of. All right, so I've just changed that to yellow. Now I'm going to copy this and paste it a few times. Hmm. Well, I see I've kind of duplicated my lettering a little too much here, but get that straight. Just leave that there. So I know this may not be the most exciting thing to watch, but I've always been fascinated by graphics and signage, and it is interesting. It is fun to do this. So, Dave, I see you mentioned you printed on clear Avery labels. How did that come out for you? Was there any ridge around the clear decal that was visible really closely to the lettering? How did that work? Sorry, I'm scanning back through the comments here. Krylon clear coat. So, John at River, is Krylon clear coat? Is that a acrylean? Is it lacquer base? What is that? Okay, so we had a couple. We had at least one example where we had a black square with two letters in it. I'm going to go ahead and make three of these. And then we'll go ahead and put some text in there. And then we'll put a couple of F's in here. So I'm trying to try and keep up with the chat best I can. Whoops. And one more. All right. So that kind of somewhat replicates one of the things that we saw in our review of the photos here. I see, Bernard, you mentioned the type E couplers. Aren't those the ones that are used for that would be to properly mate with a hazardous materials car, right? Type E is what's used on petroleum cars, for example. It has some anti-tipping properties, I believe. Maybe there's somebody on in the chat who can tell us a little bit more about type E couplers. Thank you, John, at SRV. So that's an enamel. I think that's really important. An enamel is going to be more plastic-like, right? I don't want to get too much into chemistry, partly because I'm not a chemist and I don't really know what I'm talking about. But a lacquer is basically just pigment and character evaporates and leaves the paint behind. That's why a lacquer can be reactivated. You can put thinner back on it and it dissolves again into the thinner. Uh, but an enamel has, when it dries, it creates kind of a plastic compound. Molecules bind together and change to a plastic. Can't be reactivated, and that might make it a better overcoat than what I've been using in the past. Uh, so that's good advice. That's good advice. Hello, Willow Creek Industrial Spur. See you. Thanks for coming on board. We're making some. We're doing some decal art here. So the font that we're currently using is Arial. That was actually the best match that I could find. But some of these stencils, we needed to have stencil and we needed to have stencil type lettering. So I found this uh, stencil. I'm currently using Arial, but I used ombudsman stencil for this upper decal here. So, uh, so I'll try and duplicate some of these for our the decal sheet that I'll create. I'll create an instruction sheet. I'll number each one of these, referencing it to photograph, include the photographs on my website so you can see how they were actually used. And I think there were probably some variations. There were variations of buffer that were broken up differently than this, but I'll do that. I'll do that on the decal sheet. But what I want to do right now is I want to refresh my memory. Okay, water, do not offload in black. Boy, that hyphen between water and do not offload looks really short. We'll see. Let's start by typing that out. All right, where is my cursor? Oh, I somehow clicked on white. That's what that problem is. Okay. Be nice if I could spell water. Now, was that a stencil font on there or was that a solid font? Let's see. Looks like a solid font. So I'm going to change this over to Arial. Oh, great. Why didn't I get caps? Oh, well. I don't know about you, but I am not satisfied with the way that particular font looks. It's not. It's too long. It's too stretched out. I'm going to have to search for another font to make that look appropriate. I guess I will do that later. Let's see what else we have here. Ah, yes, not potable water. Now let's take a look at that. All right, I'm going to pick a yellow color for that again. Oops. See if we've got a bold variation of this text. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. But I'm going to find a more vertical font style for this when I finish that up. So those are definitely two that I want to replicate. Boy, and I like the hyphen. When I made it bold, the hyphen certainly looks better, looks shorter. So at any rate, yeah, thanks, Ed. You're right. I think that did help it a little bit, and but it's still too. This particular font, Arial, is too long for this particular there's, and I've got a few fonts to choose from, so I could look over here. I mean, I've probably got a few hundred fonts, so I just have to look for something that's a little more vertical. I don't think that's. I think that's going to be even. Yeah, that looks too weird. So this is kind of a. That's not vertical enough in my. How about Tahoma? No, it's a guessing game. You just got to try a lot of different fonts until you get the right one. So I'm not going to. Maybe Arial narrow. Hey, that might be a little bit better. Arial narrow. So I kind of like that. So. So, at any rate, I'm not going to spend a lot more time doing this artwork. I think you've seen what the process is like. Um, I will also be preparing, some road numbers for my railroad. Maybe taking a cue from BNSF, who use one series of numbers. So I'll do that. But I will. Again, I will make this available on my website as soon as I've finished it up. There's probably a few other examples that I'll want to include from our photo survey, and then I will make that available there for anybody who's interested. So with that, I am going to conclude kind of the Brave live demo portion of this stream. Um, and thank you for riding along with me and learning a little bit about buffer cars and buffer service. Now, the final thing on my agenda is a discussion that I want to have with you in the chat about New Year's resolutions. It's almost New Year's Eve. Happy New Year. Dave, to answer your question, I don't use label paper. I use decal paper. So there's special paper made to make uh, water slide transfer decals. And so you get it from Micromark. You can get it at many hobby shops. And so you can probably order it from Amazon for all I know. I should have checked that. But you get that paper and then you can run it through your color printer, either your printer or through a big professional printer at Kinko's, which is what I do. Um, so pretty easy to get that done and to do custom stuff for your freelance model railroad. And Russ, again, buffer cars are always full, actually. They're always full of some inert material that is going to reduce the risk of fire in the event of a crash. And so they're full of sand, gravel, or in the case of tank cars, water in order to prevent a fire. Well, Randall, I was with you about not making New Year's resolutions, but last year I made a New Year's resolution that's made a really big difference in my life. It's not model railroading related, but hear me out. I didn't want to consume as many liquid calories in the form of sugar water, soda in particular. And so I made a resolution that for every ounce of anything besides water that I drank, I would drink 1 ounce of water. So that means when I go to a restaurant, I get a glass of water, I get a glass of Coca Cola or Pepsi, and I make sure that I'm reducing them at exactly the same speed throughout the meal. I just did that tonight. I've actually drank more water than soda. And that has really made a big difference in my caloric intake. And so, and my consumption of plain water. That's a New Year's resolution I made last year, and I was talking to my wife about it, and I said, I'm going to continue this for uh, the rest of my life. I did not know that, Randall, that buffer cars are filled with cement. That makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. That does include beer also, Bernard. I'm not much of a drinker, but that includes beer and hard alcohol. If I drink, it's usually old fashioned or something. So, well, I guess whether you believe in New Year's resolutions or not, I think it's important to plan. We're in a hobby that is pretty complicated if you're building a layout and you need to plan. And the beginning of a new year is always a time to reflect on what progress you made in the past year and what you want to do in the future. It may not constitute a formal resolution. I agree with you, Kyle, that can be a trap. But I do think it's a time to sit back and think about what do we want to achieve in the next year and how do we want to achieve that, and maybe to set some incremental goals. So I'd love to hear from you in chat about what you plan on doing. I am going, as if you've been following my channel, you know I have got a new space. I'm going to be building a layout, and I've got a ton of things to do. And so I'm going to start setting some objectives. I want to have my layout plan done by the end of the second week of January. I want to have some sort of a basic layout plan formulated. Um, so I want to have a drawing done, and I'll show you that on my next stream on the 26th. And I need to plan out exactly how I'm going to build my bench work. It's going to be an island, serpentine island layout in this space. So it's going to have to be freestanding bench work. So I'm going to need to have to plan out how to do that. Hello, Ron at Southwest Railroad. I wish you were here earlier when I was doing my talk on decaling, because I know you've made your own decals and you probably would have had some good advice for us. If you have any secrets you want to share, feel free to put them in the chat, Ron. I'd really appreciate it. Well, there you go. There you go, Dave. You've got a plan, but maybe you need to say, okay, by the end of January, I'm going to have the garage done. I'm going to get a dumpster and fill it up with what's in the garage that needs to go out, and just pick a date. Just having, I think it does help to articulate the goals and to break them down into manageable steps that you can accomplish. That's why I'm going to have a plan by January 15th. Hopefully by the 26th, I'll have a bench work concept, how I'm going to build the bench work, and then I'll show that to you on the 26th as well, and you can give me some input on that. Marty, that looks like a good objective. What kind of signals are you going to put in? What manufacturer's signaling system are you going to use? Randall, that sounds pretty dramatic, bulldozing the house. I don't recommend that. But I think, and I have to, once I've got the bench work plan, then I can acquire the materials to build the bench work. I've got a room here in my shop that is lined with pink foam insulation sheet, so I have to tear that out in order to make that my workshop. I'm going to recycle all that pink foam insulation onto the top of the benchwork. So maybe I think my third objective is going to be I've got to get at least one battery powered locomotive running. I don't need any track to laid down to do that. So I think by the end of February, I want to have a locomotive running on battery power. So those are kind of my first three objectives, and this is all jumping ahead, of course, of preparing the layout space. I've got this huge space; it needs a ton of work. I've only got one wall done. I've got obviously 300 walls to do. Clean up, painting, new baseboards. I've still got a lot of that work to do as well. So that'll have to be, but I've got to start making some progress on the modeling goals, I think. So that's my objective. Nice. I see Ray Bobel's objective to continue learning 3D printing and airbrushing. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Always something to learn there. I agree. So Kyle Stevens, your objective is to actually start laying track. Love that. Love that. And I see Russ is rocking O and HO trains and stuff. Is his objective is to start making videos and learn how to edit. Well, that's awesome, Russ. We all want to see your railroading efforts, and my advice there is just get started. It doesn't matter how clean it looks and how great you edit it, but just get started. There's nothing like actually doing it to learn. That's pretty commonplace advice in the YouTube community is to do that. So Ed at Happy Valley Hobbies, HOW6. Yes, never heard of that. HO scale 6 foot gauge. So where is the prototype for that? Tell us a little bit more about that in chat. I have not heard at all. So Artie, did you answer my question about what signal system you're actually using? I know there's one that's made in Australia. Oh, Atlas signal system. I see it. I see it. I see it. Ron, I see you mentioned printers, and I'm with you. I don't have a good color printer either. That's why I go to FedEx Kinko's to print it. So it might cost you know 50 cents a page or a buck a page, something like that, but you get your best printed on a very expensive color printer. But of course, it's not capable of doing white. So you can. I've never done this, but I'm sure it's a good option. Is Circus City, and others offer decal printing services. They can print white because they have much more expensive printers, um, and so you can send your artwork off to have that printed. Hey JD, good to see you. Happy New Year, sir. We're just talking about our New Year's resolutions. JD? Do you have a resolution about what you're going to achieve in your Texas train shed this year? Okay, Ray, I see. Sorry, I'm going back in chat. I see Ray Bobel said that he used L girder. I know what that is, and you made it out of MDF. Wow, is that really recommended, Ray? I thought it was recommended. plywood or conventional lumber for the legs, maybe. Maybe you made the L girders themselves out of MDF, Ray. I guess I need to know exactly what you did there, and I can go back and look at your videos. If you got a video about it, just point me at that, and I'll go check. John Kay, I didn't see you here before. Welcome. Glad to see you. Happy New Year. So I see we're past the hour. I'm not going to go on much past the hour here, but I would love to hear what you thought of this. I don't intend to do this in the future. I don't currently have an overhead camera rig yet, but by the end of January on my next stream, I should have an overhead camera set up in here, and then actually be doing some modeling. I've got some intermodal equipment, some ramps and things that I want to start constructing. I'll be able to build a model online while we're 2x4s for the legs. Okay, right. Yeah, I do have some 2x4s. I was thinking more maybe 2x2s for the legs. Uh, and my bench work is going to be pretty high. It's really going to be for you, not for others. I'm 6'1.5", so, or at least I used to be. I'm probably shrinking in my old age. It's going to be pretty high. And on the 26th of January, I'll be talking about bench work, and I'll be getting opinions about bench work, and that's sorry, I got distracted reading Ed from Happy Valley Hobbies history lesson for me about the 6 foot gauge. New York and Erie Railroad. Interesting. So, you, is that difference in gauge significant enough, Ed, that you have to scratch build or convert all of your track and your equipment, of course? So, so Russ, what is the delay in moving into that room? Is he still in it? Maybe that's the problem. And Kyle Stevens, you're talking about Walther's 83 Flex Track? Dave, I don't know Sparky's story about having unlevel bench work. Did he not use a level? Did he not make his bench work level when he started? Uh, Thanks, Bernard. I appreciate that. My first live stream ever, so hopefully it's only up from here. Um, but I did enjoy doing it and getting ready for it. And I think all this content I've created for this demo for you all will be good fodder for a quick YouTube video for my channel anyway. Um, and let me go ahead and put up again this QR code. So if you can't scan that with your phone, it'll take you to my website with a couple of there's some free decal art out there that is scaled for HO. Um, couple of things to have fun with. Please don't sell the Dunder Mifflin stuff. Somebody else has that intellectual property, and so I don't want to get in trouble. You can use it for your own layout, and I have some trucks and things decaled for Dunder Mifflin using that. But the container decals out there are completely mine. You're completely free to use those without any worries at all. And I'd love to see comments about that. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for being on board. I appreciate that trackside, Mike. All right. Well, I am looking at some of the chat about track types. I really like the track detail rather on micro engineering flex track. You know, the tie plates and stuff, very well done. And so I was really going to stick with micro engineering track, but I'm certainly willing to hear from someone with a different opinion about track. All right, Artie, thanks for being on board. I appreciate it. Happy New Year to you, sir. Take care. We'll see you online soon, I am sure. Well, I think that's all I've got for you tonight. I'm going to go ahead and give you back the rest of your evening. We've run a few minutes over. Thank you for tolerating my beginner errors streaming here. I've not done a lot of streaming before. Everybody else in SDS is an experienced streamer. Even Brian, who's new to SDS, he's an experienced streamer. So he's got the tech down. I don't have the tech down completely. That is one of my New Year's resolutions. When asked about at work what my New Year's resolution was, my first thing was I've got to get better at live streaming. So that definitely will be my thing. So bye, Ed. Thanks for your attendance and your participation. John K., I'm glad that you came. Happy New Year, JD, Russ. Thanks for all of your input and participation. Thank you, Kyle. You were the first person on the stream, and that's duly noted. Good luck to you in 2025. Thanks, Dave in Carolina Foothills. Good to see you. John, thanks for your help and participation here. I'll probably talk to you in chat about how to fix my audio. But the rest of you all take care. Happy New Year. Enjoy your modeling. Make a plan to get something done that excites you in 2025 on your modeling front. Okay? Take care. Bye bye.